You know, I think for as much as we live in this culture and this society that's so rooted in instant gratification or getting a certain result without having to put any effort in, I want you to picture what it would look like if your whole life was like that. Literally everything you did with the touch of a button just immediately came to you. Everything just worked out for you all the time. You build your confidence when you continue to do the thing you say you were going to do, even when you might have some other factors stacked against you.
Let's link up with Krysta on the FYX. She's a wellness coach with a focus on mental well-being and physical strength.
What's up, FYX listeners? Welcome back to our latest episode of the FYX podcast. I'm your host, Krysta Huber, and it's just me today. We are done with July. If you're listening to this episode the day that it airs, we have like 3 days left of the month. And I realized I had not hit you guys with a solo episode for this month. I figured now is the time to do it. So we're going to get into a few different things today around this idea of what it actually means to invest and therefore truly prioritize your health, and why that can be a struggle for people in actually doing it and living that way and taking those action steps when we know in theory that we do care about our health and we do want to prioritize our health. There is often a really big disconnect. And I've seen this in my own life. I see it with clients, even clients who are actively inside my program and have been a part of it for months. I see time periods where we just naturally go through life happening, right? And when life happens, we default to our old patterns and our old behaviors that 9 times out of 10 look like us putting our health last, even though conceptually we know that's not who we want to be and how we want to show up. So there's this trend on social media that was going around over the last couple of weeks, and it is done in the form of reels or photos, which is the way I did it, where basically it just highlights the bills that we have to pay. And I'm going to break that down and talk about it in a little more detail. It was a post that did really well, got lots of good feedback on it. I think people really appreciated the perspective, and I have more to say on it. So why not do a quick little solo episode to round out the end of this month and give a little bit more context and a little bit more of my hot take on all of that. But before we get into it, quick shout out to one of our friends of the show, one of our partners with the FYX, my friends over at Legion Athletics. If you are somebody who wants to put the best of the best when it comes to supplementation into your body, look no further than Legion. I just got my order for the month of July and I put it in a little bit late, and I realized I had run out of one of my absolute favorite supplements that I use for sleep. It is their Lunar supplement. When I tell you the score that I get on my Oura Ring when I use this supplement versus when I don't, and as somebody who has worked very hard to truthfully just become someone who better prioritizes sleep, it's been a game changer for me. Makes such a big difference in helping me fall asleep, stay asleep. I can't recommend it enough, along with their protein powders. Love the flavors, love everything that this company does, specifically because it is one of the only brands on the market that is clinically researched, and they are so transparent with everything that they do that you can go right onto their website and see exactly why they picked the dosing of each of the ingredients and formula, or what goes into their formulas for each of their products. So knowing that the supplements industry is literally the wild, wild west because there is no FDA regulation on it, it's important that you know where your stuff's coming from and what you're putting into your body. So if you care about those things, which I imagine you do if you're here, then go check out Legion. You can save 20% on your first order with code COACHKRYSTA at checkout. And when you enter that code, anytime you order after that, you also stack up double the loyalty points, which can be used towards future purchases for you to save some cash money. So let's dive into it. There is this, I think it probably started on TikTok, but I found it on Instagram, trend going around on social media back at the beginning of this month that was somebody saying, hey, sorry, I can't make it. I have bills to pay. And it was this idea of somebody turning down different events because they had other commitments. And usually when you think of, hey, I have bills to pay, you expect somebody to include things like their mortgage, their car payment, their rent, their cell phone bill, their Wi-Fi, gas, all the essentials. And this trend is everything but that. It's what somebody may call more of those, discretionary expenses or the fun expenses in your life. So some of these posts where I first got this idea to then adopt it towards like a fitness and wellness lens included videos of people like on vacations, going out to eat, treating themselves to different things. And when I was going through these and looking at comments of other people who posted this, there were sometimes issues in the comments where someone would comment and be like, oh, you're posting about your vacations and, lavish trips, these expenses that just kind of show that you're maybe out of touch with the rest of the world, where people are struggling to make ends meet and pay their bills, which is certainly a reality and an unfortunate reality for many people. And they were getting attacked for that reason. And I think that's unfair, because I wound up taking a different approach on it. And I did include things in my post that are discretionary, like buying coffee and going to a coffee shop and spending, the $6+ on the perfect iced almond milk latte or some other sort of latte that I like to treat myself to. And there are a few other examples that I give in the post that I'm going to walk through and list out for you here. But the reason why I felt like this was unfair is because the context of this point of like, hey, sorry, I can't do something, I have bills to pay. How you spend your money is just a representation of what is important to you. And this is where this gets a little bit dicey when it comes to our health and wellness. I know that if you're taking the time to listen to this podcast, you care about your health and wellness. But I also know that some of you out there listen to this podcast and have been afraid to take the next step in, say, hiring a coach and becoming a part of the Fitness Fix community. And your fear around that has to do with the fact that you may think it's expensive. And I could turn around and I could be like, how could you put a price on your health? How can you look at it as expensive when really you're just kicking the can down the road for future expenses in later years in life, when if you don't deal with your health and prioritize your health now, you could be facing, much more expensive medical bills in your older years. Like, that is a very true reality. So what you invest in now could be actually offsetting the costs of what your future life looks like. And there's a difference between this idea of an expense versus an investment. But here's where this kind of falls apart when it comes to nutrition coaching and fitness coaching in particular. Yes, we spend money on what we consider to be valuable to us. But when it comes to trying to make changes to your physique and make changes to the way you look, the way you feel, your energy levels, your confidence, there's not a guarantee that it is going to work unless two things are true. One, you pick a quick fix, which we're not going to go there in this episode. Or two, you are willing to make the change and you are willing to put in the work. As a coach, I cannot guarantee anybody results unless you are willing to meet me in actually putting the changes into place and sticking to them after you implement them, not just for a couple months, not even just for a year, but for the rest of your life. That's the definition of a true lifestyle change. Now think about it. There are other things you could spend your money on that I could argue are more expensive, maybe in like one sitting. It could be Botox. It could be the new Apple Watch that you want to buy, or even getting something like an Oura Ring. I've had people before tell me that they find our coaching program to potentially be too expensive. And then 2 weeks later, I see them on Instagram posting about how they got an Oura Ring. And yes, that's only a one-time payment of a few $100, but you somehow had those $400-ish, but you didn't have it at the time when we had the conversation about potentially working together. And all that actually signals to me is your fear that you don't think your investment in something like this is going to work. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not going to work unless you are willing to put in that work. But here is the missing piece to that story. Having the coach, making the investment in the coach is going to increase your chances of you actually doing that work. Could it take longer than 6 months? Yes, it is going to. I don't even offer a 6-month program inside of the Fitness Fix anymore. We used to. We've bumped it up to a minimum of 7. Not that it's a crazy difference, but on average, most of our clients spend at least 14 months with us before feeling like they're in a position to say, okay, I am fully equipped to implement this on my own. And that's because they want to go through different seasons and phases of their lives, of their social calendars, with travel, with summer, with all the other things that in the past they were quick to blame as the reason why they couldn't see progress. They want to have the support to be able to navigate those situations. Why? Because the several $100s per month that they throw at it right now is preventing them from needing to throw even more at it later, or feel like they've dug themselves into a further hole that now it's going to take longer. And if it does take longer, then objectively, they would need to be putting more money into it later too. So when we think about this idea of what bills we have to pay for ourselves, I'm going to walk through the ones that I included in my post. And here they are. So the first one was a picture of a bunch of fresh produce at a farmer's market. And what's interesting about this is going to a farmer's market in particular, you can actually save yourself some money. I spend like $50, $60 max on what probably would be at least like $80 to $90 at a grocery store. And I was having this conversation with my mom the other day. I noticed, and it makes perfect sense, that because the farmer's market, there's no time in between of this produce being on a truck, it actually lasts longer. So if I don't eat things as quickly as I would expect to, which is often the case, being a single female, my plans change throughout the week. I like to be overly prepared and have plenty of food options. But sometimes if I do go out to eat at the last minute, I don't eat everything as quickly as I would have anticipated. And there's nothing worse than feeling like you wasted food and you had to throw it away. So I feel like I'm getting more out of that initial cheaper investment that I'm making in that food. And more importantly, I know that it's high quality. I know that it's fresh. I know where it's coming from. So I know, like I was talking about with my Legion supplements, exactly what I'm putting into my body. And honestly, I would pay more money for that if that was necessary. In this case, it's not. The second was me having my own nutrition coach. I'm a human being, just like all of you listening to this podcast. Do I know more information than the average person about how to achieve the goals that I set for myself when it comes to fat loss, about how to maintain the results that I desire so that I can continue to feel great in my own skin and encourage other people to achieve the same? 100%. But because I'm a human being, I'm aware of the same challenges that you coming to me and saying, hey, I'm struggling with actually getting those 10 pounds off, the 15, the 20, the 40, the 50 pounds. I know that I do my best when I have somebody else's support to have conversations with, to bounce ideas off of. I'm a huge proponent of having a coach. If you are a longtime listener to the show, you know that I have different coaches in different areas of my life. And I'm very appreciative of the fact that I am able to make those investments, because I know that in wanting to lead from a place of both vulnerability and integrity, it doesn't make sense for me to not have a nutrition coach. Like, why not use the product that you also do sell at the end of the day? It would be like, the best analogy I could give is, let's say I am a big proponent of macro nutrient tracking, logging your food, all that sort of stuff. But then like behind closed doors, I was doing intermittent fasting instead when I don't actually believe in that. That doesn't make sense. That would be the equivalent of like you going and buying a car, and let's say you're going to buy a BMW, but the guy selling it to you is like a huge proponent of Audi, and like he only drives Audis as his personal vehicle. Well, if you knew that, you might think twice about actually buying the BMW, right? Because, okay, maybe this person has a preference for Audis, but then it's like, well, why aren't they selling that? Why aren't they selling, what they actually drive, and clearly what they actually want to spend their money on too? I look at my role as a nutrition coach the same exact way. Number 3, hobbies. I've done a few episodes about this recently, about exploring new activities and recognizing that the amount of effort and time and attention that I pour into my business is a way for me to integrate my business into my life, and not necessarily the other way around, but also finding ways to unplug and decompress is me practicing what I preach, because that's something that we encourage our clients to do inside of the Fitness Fix. If you're somebody that has a lot going on, feel like you're glued to your phone or your computer often, it's important to create the same kind of structure that we talk about around our food with doing other things in your day-to-day routine, which for me could be as simple as going for a walk with Bean, going for a bike ride, or new one I've recently picked up is playing golf. And one of the reasons I specifically like it is because it is obviously physically active. It's challenging. I like that little bit of frustration and just being a beginner at something again. And it gets me moving, gets me away from technology for a couple hours outside, enjoying the weather, and, potentially meeting some new people along the way too. Just trying something different, being part of a different scene. Number 4, self-development. Kind of goes into the same bucket of everything I was just talking about when it comes to the purpose for having a coach. I have worked with a self-development coach specifically this year. If you missed the episode that I did with my guy Oliver just a couple weeks ago, I will link it down in the show notes. It is one you absolutely want to tune into. We talked a lot about self-love, about how to integrate some of the very simple practices like breath work, meditation, and tools that I use, books that I've also read at his recommendation. And again, goes back to this idea of wanting to embody the type of leader that I am and truly show up as that person. Well, got to practice what I preach, and having that support to be able to do that and having that accountability to be able to do that fully aligns with all of the values that we teach inside of the Fitness Fix too. Next one, number 5, physical and mental challenges. Now, for this one, I specifically included a picture of the HYROX race that I did back in June, which I also did a recap episode on last month. If you want to check that one out, that's in the show notes too. And it was super hard. It was tough, but I knew it was something that would push me to step outside my comfort zone. Same thing with what I was describing with hobbies just a moment ago. And it just allows you to recognize that like your physical capacity to push yourself to do things can then translate to the mental resilience that is required to get through hard things in life. If one thing in life is guaranteed, it's that things will change, and that change can often be met with challenges. And knowing that you can push through, or the confidence, I should say, that you can push through, for me at least, comes through what I do to push my body in the gym and in races like this one. So another one I'm willing to see as a bill that's worth investing into and spending not only money on, but a lot of time to train for it, etc. Next one, work and play. And for this one, I included a picture of me and my friend at a bar in Dallas with a couple of margaritas sitting on our computers. Now, this one has multiple meanings to me, but what I really wanted to get at with sharing this one as like one of my bills is figuring out how to have the flexibility to work from anywhere in an industry that, just shy of 4 years ago, I thought had to be a physical position inside of a gym, being group fitness instructor or a personal trainer, and not necessarily having the opportunity to be able to travel, go to different places, move cities, all that sort of stuff. And that has obviously totally changed since the Fitness Fix has grown and has been my sole business over the course of the past year. And I'm very proud of that, because I think entrepreneurship has been the ultimate test. And I often see it as like the ultimate form of therapy, because it really holds up a mirror to your strengths, your weaknesses, your blind spots, what you may need to do more work in because of the challenges that you tend to face. And on the positive side of it, though, the work that people don't see, right? Like the work that people don't see when you are losing weight, when somebody gives you a compliment and they're like, hey, you look really great, but they don't know that you've put in the time and attention to weighing your food, being consistent in the gym, going to bed earlier, not snoozing your alarm. Same thing holds true for the back end of what it takes to run a business that you just may see the side on social media that's like the client results, the glamorous side of the traveling and the trips and all these sorts of things that we can do, when there's also been and will continue to be lots of late nights, mistakes, job transitions with people on our team, like so many different aspects that don't necessarily, get highlighted here. Even just like the small details of working on things for the podcast. I've talked about this before. I've done episodes where I've mentioned like sometimes I feel like I don't have a whole lot to say, and I feel the obligation to hold myself to being consistent every single week with producing the show, because I know that if one person hears it and there's one thing that resonates, one small message, it could completely change that person's trajectory of their day, their week, their month, whatever it is. But there is a lot of, let's call it soul searching that goes into that too. And, it's an investment in yourself, not only in the form of like seeing what you can do, kind of the same thing I was just saying about like what you can do to push yourself physically, but also just the time and people not necessarily understanding what it's like to run your own business and some of the things that maybe keep you up at night. Next one is my team. That includes everybody that we work with. And I'll even extend that to our clients too. I should have probably edited this one to say my community, and investing in that community can be done in the form of continuing education as a coach, becoming a better coach by doing a lot of the things that I'm including in this episode, but also by going to conferences, getting additional certifications, always looking for opportunities to learn, to read, to listen to other podcasts, to stay up to date on what questions our clients may be bringing to us that sometimes also have nothing to do with nutrition and nothing to do with fitness, but more to do with the, behavioral side of things. Because ultimately at the Fitness Fix, what we're really teaching is behavior change and what may be blocking you from creating those new habits and how to help you actually create them and stick to them so that it's not just a small change and like a flip of a switch, but a true identity shift over time. So putting in that effort to have a really strong team, have a really strong community around us is something that's super important to me and something I'm willing to spend both time and money to be able to make happen. And to that same note, similar theme on this one as well, friendships, having friends who are in similar businesses, running their own businesses in similar industries, and even people who aren't, the friends who get you out of your day-to-day routine a little bit and say, hey, let's just like decompress a little bit, go do something fun. All of that adds the color to your life that is needed to live that really full, fulfilling life, but to also give you different perspectives and to help you understand when people are coming from other places, or help you understand what is actually important to you based on the time that you put into it. So while a lot of these other things are bills in the sense that they actually cost money, the reason why I wanted to include the friendship one was because I think that comes down to effort and attention. And it's very rare that we have those true quality friendships in life where you know that that person's going to tell you exactly what you need to hear, exactly what they're thinking, versus the person who's just like kind of sort of agreeing with you because it's easier to do so. And again, holding up that mirror and being that person that's going to kind of like call you out on your BS. I feel very grateful that I have more than one of those types of friends in life. And I don't know that people always do. So just surrounding yourself with people who are real takes effort on your part to show up inside of that relationship the way you want to show up so that they can be that person back for you too. And the last one, coffee. Like I mentioned at the very beginning of listing these few, the reason why I included something like coffee is because it's more about the experience. Like taking yourself on a little date, romanticizing the day-to-day things in your life, looking forward to that cup of coffee because maybe it's something a little bit different than what you normally drink if you're making it at home, or even just bringing yourself to a different environment. I find that when it comes to looking for creativity to come up with podcast content ideas or come up with new resources to be able to offer you guys in terms of like really analyzing what is going to help people get the result that they want, just like getting out of your day-to-day routine and not always working in the same exact place can make a huge difference in just unlocking some of that. So when I think about spending those couple extra dollars on the coffee versus making it at home, there's so much more that goes with it. And the way I kind of summarized this post, like the question that I left at the end of this post, is the same way that I will wrap up this episode. And that's this idea of, you know, when you ask yourself like whether you can afford something, what might it look like for you to say, oh, I can't afford this. And by me saying I can't afford this, it's actually negatively impacting my health and wellness. Or better said, can you afford not to do it? And if you feel like you can afford not to do it, then kudos to you, because chances are that means that you got it all figured out. And hey, maybe you are better than me. Maybe you do have it all figured out. Maybe you're not the person who feels that they need a nutrition coach because you're listening to this and you're like, I'm super happy with my health. I'm super happy with how I feel on a day-to-day basis. I'm confident. Everything's good. But if you're not, and you've ever had the thought about coaching and said to yourself, it just seems like such a big investment, it's supposed to be a big investment because it's an investment in you. And it's a type of investment that will come back tenfold if you choose to show up and do the work. And even more than me emphasizing again and again and again, you need to show up and do the work. What I'll also say is there's so much satisfaction in you doing it. You know, I think for as much as we live in this culture and this society that's so rooted in instant gratification or getting a certain result without having to put any effort in, I want you to picture what it would look like if your whole life was like that. Like literally everything you did with the touch of a button just immediately came to you. Everything just worked out for you all the time. And there was no challenge. There was no little bit of an uphill battle. Maybe it doesn't need to be like, you know, extremely difficult all the time. But if you lived in a world where everything just immediately came to you at the drop of a hat, do you really think you would be super happy? Because at least for me, I know that I find satisfaction and happiness in the challenge. And when it comes to this idea of building your confidence, you build your confidence when you continue to do the thing you say you were going to do, even when you might have some other factors stacked against you. There's a level of pride that you can carry with you when, let's say, you have had a tough few months at work or a tough few months in your personal life, but you've continued to focus on nourishing your body, getting good quality sleep as often as you can, drinking your water, getting your steps in, because you know those things physically made you feel good. But the reason why they made you mentally feel good is because they're a representation of you prioritizing you. And that is our biggest mission that we have at the Fitness Fix. For you ladies out there, especially, getting you to a place where you prioritizing you is your non-negotiable. It's just the way you operate. There is not a single negative connotation around the word selfish. It is the most selfless thing that you can do for yourself to put yourself first. So paying those bills that include your fitness, your health, and your overall wellness should be some of the best bills. They should be some of the most feel-good bills that you ever pay in your life. And if you're ready to take that leap, you're ready to build that certainty around guaranteeing that you can finally lose that weight, keep it off for good, feel better than you have in years, let's have a conversation. The link to our one-on-one coaching application is down in the show notes. You can also shoot me a DM at the Krysta Huber just to talk, learn more about what's included inside of our process, and see if we're a fit for each other. And with that, as always, from wherever you're listening from, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.